Wages went down 5% between 2001 and 2009 when they were in power. That's not according to me, that's according to the Wall Street Journal. Job growth was slower during that period than any decade since World War II. These guys are talking about jobs now? They had 8 years, and it didn't work. It took a record surplus left by President Bill Clinton, and it became a record deficit by the time I took office. A big $1.3 trillion present they left me as I walked in the Oval Office. They set up a free-for-all on Wall Street that led to a crisis that we're still grappling with today. Now I bring up all these things not to relitigate the past. I just don't want to relive the past. And I bring this up because that is the philosophy the Republicans, like Alexi's opponent, intend to bring back if they win in November. Now, they might have a new name for it. They call it the Pledge to America. The Pledge to America. It's the same stuff they've been peddling for years. They're trying to hoodwink you once again. Let's take a look at the Pledge to America. Some of you may not have examined it. Now, for starters, it turns out that part of the pledge was actually written by a former lobbyist for AIG and ExxonMobil. You cannot, yes, you can't make this stuff up. So that gives you a clue of, who they're making the pledge to. Then the centerpiece of this pledge is a $700 billion tax cut for the wealthiest 2% of Americans. That is their big idea. Now, these are the folks who lecture us on fiscal responsibility. So I have to point out, we don't have $700 billion. We'd have to borrow $700 billion from the Chinese or the Saudis, and then use it to provide tax cuts worth an average of $100,000 to millionaires and billionaires. When you ask them, well, where are you going to find the $700 billion? They don't have an answer. But when you look at the fine print, it turns out that a small portion of the tax cut they want to pay for by cutting education by 20%. 20%, which would translate into reduced financial aid for 8 million college students. At a time when education is the biggest predictor of a country's economic success, they think it's more important to provide these tax breaks to folks who don't need them, weren't asking for them, than it is to make sure that our young people can get to college. Which makes me want to ask our Republican friends, do you think China is cutting back on education? Think South Korea is making it harder for its citizens to get a college education? These countries are not playing for second place. And the United States of America does not play for second place. We play for first. That's what this election's about. That's what this election's about. See, Alexi and I have a different idea about what the next 2 years should look like. Yes, sir. It's an idea rooted in our belief about how this country was built. We know government doesn't have all the answers to all of our problems. We don't believe government's main role is to create jobs or prosperity. We believe government should be lean and efficient, and that the private sector should be creating jobs. We want to reduce the deficit, which is why we proposed a 3-year spending freeze, and we set up that bipartisan fiscal commission to deal with our deficit that the other side voted against. But we also believe in America, we reward hard work and responsibility. We believe this is a country where we look after one another, that we are our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper. That's the America I know. That's the choice in this election. So instead of tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, we want to make permanent tax cuts for middle-class Americans. Because folks who work hard every day, they deserve a break. Instead of the Republican plan to keep tax breaks for companies that are shipping jobs overseas, we want to give tax breaks to companies that are investing here in the United States of America. to small businesses and American manufacturers and clean energy companies. I don't want solar panels and wind turbines and electric cars made in Europe and Asia. I want them built here in the United States by American workers. If Republicans take back Congress, they will try their hardest to give back power to the same special interests that me and Dick and Jan and Danny have been fighting for the last 20 months. We can't let them do that. We can't go back to the days when insurance companies could drop your health insurance when you got sick. We can't go back to the day when credit cards could jack up your rates for no reason. We can't go back to the days of taxpayer-funded bailouts. We can't allow special interests to take free rein again. That's why I'm proud to be standing next to Alexi. He's made it clear he'll fight for you in the United States Senate. He's not funding his campaign with federal PACs or lobbyist money. On his first day in office, he enacted the most sweeping ethics reforms of any Illinois state treasurer, ensuring that contractors and banks couldn't pay to play for state business. He took on credit card companies and banned them from aggressively marketing on college campuses so that our kids don't graduate with credit card debt on top of tuition debt. And a lot of you know what he did for Heart Marks, which, by the way, made this suit. It's a company that's employed people in this state for more than 100 years. And when it fell on hard times and a big bank threatened to pull its credit, risking more than 600 jobs, Alexi stepped in. He told that bank if they did that, they'd no longer manage the money of Illinois taxpayers. He helped save that company, those jobs. They can testify about who he's going to fight for, who he cares about. That's the kind of person you want in the United States Senate. Somebody who doesn't forget where they came from, why they're in this, who they're fighting for. Somebody who does not stop fighting, period, because there's too much at stake right now to give up the fight. So it comes down to this, Chicago. There are a lot of folks in the other party who are running today who are the same folks who drove this economy into the ditch. And me and the rest of the Democrats here in Washington, we climbed down into that ditch. We put on our boots. It was muddy. It was hot. It was bugs. But we pushed. And we pushed. And we pushed. And every once in a while, we'd look up and see the Republicans up there, looking comfortable, fanning themselves, sipping on Slurpees. And we'd say, why don't you come down and help? And they'd say, no, but you're not pushing hard enough. You're not pushing the right way. And we just kept on pushing. And finally, we got the car up on level ground. Finally we got it on level ground. Now, it's gone through some trauma. So, the fender's all dented, needs a tune-up. But it's on level ground, and it's pointing in the right direction. And suddenly we feel this tap on our shoulder, and we look back, and it's the Republicans. And we say, what do you want? And they say, we want the keys back. And you tell them, no, you can't have the keys back. You don't know how to drive. You do not know how to drive. We will... You can join us. You can hop in the back seat. But we're not giving you the keys back. Have you ever noticed when you drive, you want to go forward, what do? You put the car in D. If you want to go backwards, you put it in R. That's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. But whether they get the keys back is ultimately up to you. They see a chance to get back in the driver's seat with the special interest riding shotgun. And thanks to a recent Supreme Court decision, they're being helped along by special interest groups that are spending unlimited amounts of money, all on attack ads, and they don't disclose who's behind the ads. Could be an oil company, could be an insurance company, could be Wall Street. You don't know. Almost every one of them is run by Republican operatives. They're posing as nonprofits, non-political groups. They've got these innocuous-sounding names like Americans for Prosperity, the Committee for Truth in Politics, or Moms for Motherhood. I made that last one up. But you wouldn't know. According to one recent report, conservative groups like these have outspent Democrats 7-1. Right here in Illinois, in this Senate race, two groups funded and advised by Karl Rove have outspent the Democratic Party 2-1 in an attempt to beat Alexi. 2-1. Funded and advised by Karl Rove. Just this week, we learned that one of the largest groups paying for these ads regularly takes in money from foreign sources. So the question for the people of Illinois is, are you going to let special interests from Wall Street and Washington and maybe places beyond our shores come to this state and tell us who our senators should be? That's not just a threat to Democrats, that's a threat to our democracy. The American people deserve to know who's trying to sway their election. And if we just stand by and allow special interests to silence anybody who's got the guts to stand up against them, our country is going to be a very different place. That's not how our democracy operates. So that's why we've got to work even harder in this election. That's why we need to fight their millions of dollars with millions of voices who are ready to finish what we started in 2008. Because if everybody who fought for change in 2008 shows up to vote in 2010, we will win. And by the way, most of the polls say the same thing. Alexi will win. Pat Quinn will win. The entire ticket will win. So they are counting on you staying home and being apathetic. They're counting on your silence. They are counting on your amnesia. That's what they're counting on. So Chicago, prove them wrong. Let's show Washington one more time. Change doesn't come from the top. It doesn't come from millions of dollars of attack ads. Change happens from the bottom up. Change happens because of you. And if you get fired up one more time, if you're knocking on doors and making phone calls and talking to your friends and going into the barber shops, going into the beauty shops, I promise you, we will have Alexi as the next senator from the great state of Illinois. Thank you very much. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.